Gabriel Gray, the son of a New York City watchmaker, has an uncanny ability to understand how things work.
I can fix it.
My watch isn't broken.
Actually, it is. If the self-winding coil is loose, your watch is running 2 seconds slow.
But Gabriel wanted something more.
And the first time I saw the show, I thought the writing was very different than anything else I could see on TV. And did you get that feeling when you first received the script?
I did. I actually read the script when it was the pilot, when it was casting the original show, which was over a year ago. It would be a year ago March, so almost a year and a half ago. And I was involved in another project. I wasn't available for it, but there was something about it that really drew me in, and I felt very strongly that the story had a lot of power. And then, as it happens, the project that I was working on ended, and then the following September, it came back around for the role of Siler. The role of Siler wasn't being cast in the pilot episode. I came in midway through the first part of this season, so. Yes, I felt strongly that the writing was heightened and colorful and accessible, but at the same time, the themes were really, I think, important. The themes of people waking up to their own power, especially in the world that we live in now, are really important and necessary themes. So it was something that I responded to immediately.
People in the United States hate you in the street?
Do they hate me in the street? They don't hate me in the street. Sometimes they're afraid of me, which is interesting. A couple of times, in fact, on my way here in the airport in Chicago, I had a layover, and I was coming out of the bathroom and rounded the corner and almost ran into somebody, and you could tell that they recognized me from the show, and that there was this moment of of fear because the character is so. But I'm, as a person, very relatable and really easygoing. I'm very different from my character. So once people get to know me and see that side of me, then I think that dissipates that sort of.
Were you a fan of comic books before starting the show?
I haven't been. No, I don't have a history of. I mean, when I was a kid, I had a few that I would peruse, but I certainly wasn't an aficionado of comics, and many of the people that work in our show come from that world, so it's opened it up to me a lot. Jeff Loeb, of course, is a world-renowned comic book writer, and some of the other writers on our show as well. So I've learned a lot about it, and I really appreciate the sort of the world that's created in our show, and I think it's directly relatable to comic books.
No, you never know what's going to happen next. How does it work? When do you receive the script?
Usually we get the script about a week before we start shooting an episode, maybe 10 days before we start shooting an episode. They're constantly being revised, so we get an initial production draft, which is then continually updated and changed throughout that week. And even into shooting, they keep changing things that the secrets that are revealed to us. If they directly involve our characters, then we might have some advanced warning about it. But otherwise, we find out with everybody else when we read the script. So it's always keeping us on the edge of our seats as well.
If you could play another character on the show, male or female, which one would you choose?
A good question. It's a really good question. I mean, I'm really drawn to all of the characters. I feel like they're all really complex people. I think I'm really drawn into the storyline personally of the Bennetts. So I might be a Bennett. I don't know. I'd be HRG or Claire. Certainly an interesting dynamic between the two of them. And I'm definitely drawn into that story when I watch the show. So maybe HRG, because I think I can relate to that sense of depth that character has, because I think my character is sort of similar, similarly written.
Each character is kind of discovering himself or herself in each episode. Can we expect some new discovery from your character in the next in the upcoming?
The next section of the season, definitely. One episode in particular is episode 21, and I think there's a point at which Siler really he's given pause. He realizes the potential for his destruction, and I think it sort of arrests him, and he wrestles with it, and the effect of that is pretty powerful. So that episode was really fun for me because it was an opportunity to go back and explore the sort of origins of this character, some primary relationships in his life, and see what that struggle is like and what it is to come up against that. So I think that's always happening. Every episode, I discover something more about my character, and I look forward to watching that continue into the next season.
The particularity of Siler is that it steals superpowers. So,
steals the superpowers, yeah. So
you have them all.
Yeah, of course.
Like, which one do you prefer? Like which one do you
personally,
yeah.
As an actor, as a person, I would definitely choose invisibility.
It's strange for an actor.
Yeah, I guess it is, but I feel strongly that it would be nice to be able to sort of move about and do your thing, and I don't know, just hang out, not go under the radar a little bit, get on a plane without having to wait in line, get into a bar without having to wait in line, all those kinds of things. I think invisibility would come in handy.
It's more about the freedom than the need to disappear?
Yeah, I think so. The freedom of it. I think you can just sort of, where am I? I don't know.
Would you say that there was no humanity in this friendship, or that's still Siler being a supervillain is human?
Right. I think there was humanity in it. I think that Siler, again, it comes back to that sense of the need for validation, the need for purpose, which he feels very deeply. I think Mohinder, I think there was a struggle. I think because on one hand he really did sort of connect with this person and feel like this person gave him a sense of hope and validation, but then on the other hand, this sort of hunger took over, and then he manipulated the situation, and ultimately that's where it ended for them, for the time being. So I think there was humanity in it, but I think the humanity served a larger goal for Siler, which was to sort of get as much power as possible.
Do you think his hunger is genetic? Like it can be excused because, it's like a manifestation of an illness, maybe?
It could be. I don't know about genetic, but I guess potentially it could be, I think it is rooted in some mental instability. And where that comes from, no one can necessarily say. But I do think that it's an illness. I do think that there's something that's... there's something off about Gabriel Gray, the person that you meet in the watch shop. There's something that is very meticulous and very sort of, detailed and isolated and solitary. And I think that there's a delusion that can be born out of that kind of solitude, out of that kind of isolation.
It's kind of like ticking bomb.
Yeah, in a lot of ways, it's a horrifying thing that's happened recently in the United States at Virginia Tech. Absolutely horrifying. But these videos that came out after the incident, I watched when I actually got here yesterday. I was watching it on BBC, and there was something that really, went right to that sort of and everybody said about that guy that he was very isolated and that he was very withdrawn and that he was very socially awkward, and that there were things that I could definitely relate to, as this character when I was reading the details of that story. When somebody basically shuts themselves off from society and removes themselves from stimulation and connection to other people, these kinds of deranged fantasies can be given life, and the result can sometimes be really deadly. Not to sort of diminish that experience by drawing a parallel to a television show. It's two very different things, but something that I could connect to as an actor.
What do you think about the influence that TV shows or movies can have on the audience?
I think it's a very complicated question. I think that the influence that American television and film has on the rest of the world and the rest of the world's image of America is really powerful. And I feel like the political and social climate of the world right now is really unstable. And I think that that it's easy for people to draw those kinds of parallels because there is a fair amount of violence and other sort of gratuitous things in the culture right now. And I don't think it's exclusive to America, but I think that American culture is really pervasive, and I think that this show explores both sides of that. And the thing that I'm really drawn to in this show is that the overall theme, I believe, is people waking up to their power and how to use that power for good. And I think that that is the most important message of our show, and I think it's a message that should be shared and disseminated as much as possible right now, because people do need to wake up to their goodness. We need to change the world. We need to change the world. And if there's some small way that a television show or a film has an influence over that, I think that more and more people should be looking to the influence that it can have to the good and not to the bad. And that's one of the things that I enjoy about our show. Now, granted, I'm the bad force on our show, but I feel like the overall themes are such that it's about goodness. It's about using your power for goodness, and that's important.
You've acted in other TV shows like CSI or on 24. Are you still watching them, or what other shows do you like?
Oh, what shows do I watch? I watch. Let me think. I really enjoy The Sopranos. I really enjoyed when it was on the air. My favorite show, I think, of all time was 6 Feet Under, which I had the pleasure to do one episode of. I don't watch 24 anymore. I don't really watch CSI. I mean, those were all. I mean, 24 I was on for an entire year, but a lot of the other stuff that I did was sort of 1 or 2 episodes, 3 episodes here or there. I like Studio 60 on the Sunset Strip. I like. What else? See, I just moved, so I disconnected my television, and I don't have a television now in my new house yet. So all of my television show watching was disrupted. But I'm trying to think, because there were definitely shows that I would never miss. I'm trying to think of what they were. But those are a few. 30 Rock, I love 30 Rock. Very funny. Keeping it in the family, NBC. But yeah, I don't watch too much television. I didn't have a television for 5 years. Then I moved and got one. So I'm not a huge. It's funny because it's where I work, but maybe that's part of the reason why. I much prefer going to the cinema. Certainly.
So they adapted to you. It's your silence.
To a degree, yeah. I mean, that's inevitable when you work on a series. I think eventually you develop relationships with the writers, and they get to understand your voice, your specific voice, and what your strengths are as an actor, and then they're able to sort of write to them a little bit more. But yeah, it certainly adapted, and I think I brought a sense of maybe the unexpected to the process that they responded to.
Well, they weren't bad people. They were just insignificant. And I wanted to be different. Special. I wanted to change. A new name, a new life. His desire to be important led him down a dark path.
I called you. My name is... My name is Siler.